we're conditioned to believe that women should be self-sacrificing. Women are meant to care for other people.
Why do you think a lot of, I think women, more than men, become people pleasers? Is it something in our childhood? Is it something we learned along the way? Do we want love, so we think this is the only way we can get love?
Feminine in general is seen as self-sacrificing. I think there is an idea that women find it satisfying when they make other people happy. I completely disagree with this. I have to say we're changing that under this patriarchal system. If you prioritize yourself, your children will see that and they will not take it in the wrong way. They will learn that this is what self-love is. Put yourself first at times. That will be good for your kids.
Hi, Ludovica. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to be talking to you about confidence and people pleasing because sometimes I teach it, sometimes I struggle with it. So thank you for being here. And before we begin, can you share with us one beautiful childhood memory?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I think the best childhood memory I have is not really one event. It's more the idea of being with a family full of people who love each other. As we were saying before, I'm Italian. So in Italy, obviously, we have this big culture. We're very family oriented. And in my life, unfortunately, for one reason or another, I didn't get to experience a lot my family, immediate family, like my parents or my cousins, the extended family as well, because I traveled a lot. And for many reasons that maybe we will get into, maybe not. But today I don't have such a close relationships with all of them. And so partially that's due to me moving around and partially is due to just life happening, and as we were saying before, you never know what's happening 5 minutes from now. And so I have this beautiful memory, and I think I'm very lucky in having this of me at home with my cousins playing every day. Like it was always a party. And even though my family life has not been always rainbows and unicorns, but I can still keep with me that memory of warmth and closeness and lots of good things. Yeah, I guess that's it.
That's beautiful. How did you become an expert on people pleasing and confident?
When I realized that I was a people pleaser myself, and at the age of 24, I think I didn't really know who I was altogether. And I realized that all my life until that point, and also a little bit later on, had been built around other people's needs and preferences. And I completely self-abandoned, I guess, if I can use that word, although I never really knew myself. So I don't know if I can, but it unfortunately had many experiences in my life where other people's situations, needs, preferences, wants were somehow more important than mine. And so when you grew up in that environment, obviously you don't really learn to listen to yourself, to understand yourself. You don't know how to identify your needs. You don't even know you have needs. Like you live your life for other people, you completely decenter yourself, and the other becomes your center. So that's what, and we see this specifically people pleasers and people pleasers I work with, and I don't think that's an exception, but they struggle a lot with their relationships, right? Because it's the relationships that you have that mirror whatever lack you feel you have back to you. And so I had lots of toxic relationship. By the age of 24, I realized that something was really off, that it was the other person. The problem probably was me. I was the toxic one, and I was entertaining toxic dynamics because I didn't know who I was. And so at the number X, Y, and Z relationship that failed, I was like, I'm not doing this again. I really want to be able to learn how to recenter myself, how to be the center of my own world, and to feel whole within, which is a word we often use and sometimes we don't really know what it means, but essentially is to recognize your needs and try to satisfy them yourself, so to give to yourself what you need instead of outsourcing everything on the outside. Because people can give you love, they can give you so many nice things, but then at some point they can stop giving you that. So you need to be able to then be okay with the idea that relationships can also be transient. So from there, I think I started to get to know myself a little bit more and to set boundaries in relationships. I think everything for me started with boundaries, which is also why I have a course on boundaries, because I think that the number one thing for people pleasers that they can start, to change almost immediately is communication. Is how they communicate in their relationship.
Why do you think a lot of, I think women more than men, but some men too, yeah, become people pleasers? Is it something in our childhood? Is it something we learned along the way? What's the reason for that? Do we want love, so we think this is the only way we can get love?
I think we're conditioned to believe that women should be self-sacrificing. Women are meant to care for other people. Women are meant to just, make the other the center. And just because we can be moms, then this means that we can sacrifice ourselves for the other and just support the other person. I think there is an idea that this is how women find relating satisfying when they make other people happy. And I completely disagree with this. And I think that this is because nowadays the feminine in general is seen as self sacrificing. I mean, I have to say we're changing that very slowly, but at least, so far has been like that under this patriarchal system. So the feminine needs to be and to exist for the other or as a reflection of the other, which I think is a huge problem. And I don't think you can seek love if you are in love first yourself. And this is, I guess, what was my breakthrough moment as well. I didn't love myself, and that's why the relationship I had were toxic. Also, I was born in a family like my parents were a bit like problem, I would say, troubled people mentally, physically, and so they were often at the center of my attention. Like everything I did, I thought about them. Every time I had to communicate something, I would worry about how they would take what I had to say.
So you were basically walking on eggshells near them. It sounds like a little bit narcissistic dealing with a.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it was like walking on eggshells. So I was in survival mode. And so I didn't have time to think about thriving. Like when you're in survival mode, you don't think about thriving because you think about surviving. You think about, how can I get through this conversation without causing conflict or without being maybe abused or being, I don't know, something. So, um, so yeah, I think at some point I just got the message that I was a bit, I was worthless, I guess, or it was unlovable, or that. Yeah, I know, because basically, when you see other people who are supposed to take care take care of you struggling so much to the point that you become the parent, so you become the parentified child, then you're like, okay, so that's my role, taking care of other people. So where am I in all of this? It didn't matter. I didn't get to that question even. I didn't know where I was. I didn't care about where I was. All I cared was to just make my parents happy. And so at some point that changed when I realized that this modality, maybe it could work with them. It worked at some point in my life because I really did need to survive in that specific environment. But when I used the same behaviors with other people, then other people were perceiving that I lacked self love, essentially. And so that's perfect recipe to attract a toxic partner, or let's say a partner who benefits from that at some level. Yeah, but to answer your question, I think that women more than men, and I would say the feminine more than the masculine, is been is believed to be a reflection of the other. So it's believed uh, to exist just because he has to take care of something else.
Right. Like a mother should be a Mother Teresa. But actually, if you go into her biography, she wasn't a people pleaser at all. She would, I heard a story where she would come to mega rich people and she would pretty much demand money in the most like direct way possible, putting them on the spot and stuff. But we all have this hallucination of what a mother should be, what a partner should be. We get messages from our schooling system, we get messages from Disney movies, we get messages from movies in general, we get message from our societies, our culture, our biblical stories, everything is teaching us what's the, like, we all have our own specific ideal of what a partner or a mother should be, and it's based on sacrifice many times. If you sacrifice, if you're a martyr, then you're a good wife, you're a good mother, you're a good partner, you're a good, even good in business, or a good friend. Look at that. Like, I love this friend of mine that does everything I want. If this is horse trading and conditional love, then it's not really love, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree. And obviously, love always starts with us. And if we give up, if we pour our energy into people all the time, we don't have anything left for ourselves. So basically, by definition, we lack. And so we keep maintaining this cycle where we have lack of love. We project that onto the outside by giving, and then what the other person gets is this excess of love, which then it becomes self-sacrifice, but it's never free also, because that's how codependency is born. Because if I give you everything, or if I give you all my energy, all my attention, then I also want something back, and that's very subconscious. Especially in people pleasers, they have expectations after that, and their expectations often get disappointed, because in the end you can't really expect people to react in the way you would react, because you would react with self-sacrifice, but other people will not necessarily be on your same wavelength. And I would say that's probably good, but then you see that everything you give out, it doesn't come back. And so often this is when people pleasers reach for therapy or for coaching, because they're like, I am unsatisfied in my relationship because everyone, like, people don't value me. People, I'm always like putting them on a pedestal. I'm always putting them first, and I put myself second, but they don't do the same with me. And so that's when the moment happened. And that's how it happened with me as well. I realized that at some point I found myself alone in my life. I had no one. Like, everyone was busy with their own lives. And I was just 24, which is usually supposed to be a time of your life in which you're very social and you have lots of people around. I didn't. All people I knew just were so focused on their own lives. And I was like, who was thinking about me? No one was. They were just busy on their own things, on their own life. And I was there just realizing that probably I gave the wrong things.
Right. So somebody who's listening, if they're probably, I mean, many of the people who are listening are doing some sort of people pleasing. How do we detect that we are people pleasers? And then how do we get out of that trap? What is the fine line between I'm helpful and I'm kind to I'm a people pleaser?
Yeah. And I think it comes down to, like, few, let's say, general rules for living that people pleasers might have. So one rule for living might be, I need to avoid conflict all the time. So if a rule, if you resonate with that rule, you probably fit into the people pleaser archetype. Or I need to be liked all the time, which then has all a number of implications. So what do you do to be liked all the time? Well, I put other people's first. I try not to rock the boat. I don't talk about my things. Like, I try not to burden people. So there are a number of behavior where you are completely decentered. You don't exist. The other person is the center of whatever decision you take. And then there is the rule, I need to help people all the time. So the so-called fixer, the hero, like, I need to be helpful. I need to fix it for other people.
Sounds like someone I know personally.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing as well, that people, at some point, people pleasers in their lives, at least once, at least for a period of time, large period of time at times, they think, this is my personality and this is a good thing. Like, I'm generous, I'm kind, I'm someone who wants to help other people. What's wrong with that? And so they create this whole personality around rules that actually were there because of a trauma response that happened back in the days, long time ago. But these rules stayed as part of their personality. And sometimes they take pride in that. I took pride in being someone who was there for other people, someone who never requested anything, never had really didn't have a space in the relationships. I just existed. I tried to be as neutral as I can, as I could, and being that person who, yeah, you see me, but I'm not here. Like, I'm not gonna show up too much. I'm not gonna show off anymore. Too much. I'm not gonna be loud. I'm not gonna be myself.
And what was the transformation for you when you caught yourself, you said to yourself, this is it, I need to put boundaries? And so, what type of boundaries did you put? What was the reaction of the world around you? How did your relationship shift due to this journey of boundaries? And sometimes when people are people pleasers and then they decide to stop, they just go to the other extreme and they become very unkind till they find the middle way. So yeah, that would many questions in one, but feel free to answer what comes to mind.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's also people pleasers' worst fear to then become rude or selfish. And that's why when we refrain in our sessions, when we reframe the idea of a self-sacrificing as being kindness, then the first thing that people say is, but well, if I think about my needs first, am I not selfish? But there is a continuum, right? It's not like black and white type of thing. And often people go too much the other way because the anger that they have inside for the time that they have been people pleasers and that they couldn't actually express because they didn't know how to feel it, they suppressed it, right? Then it comes out altogether, and they can go at times the other way. But that's what we try to avoid when we work on it, because we want to take small steps. We want to build someone's confidence slowly. We want to use low stakes situations to start saying no, setting boundaries, and healthy relationships usually improve when you start doing that. Toxic relationships don't. Toxic relationships will just live your life when you start setting boundaries. And I had a situation like that, which it's not, obviously, it doesn't stop being painful. At some point, you feel the pain of losing someone, but you also realize that that person was not right for you. The way they were relating to you, the way you were relating to them, it was not on. Like, it couldn't continue. So if you try to change that relationship to make it a good fit for your new way of being, that's an act of love. And if they decide to walk away from you, then that's just life. So that's when we need to accept that other people have their free will as well.
But what do you do when it's easy to walk away from strangers, but what if it's in your own family? There is some kind of a toxic dynamic, usually that combines a narcissist and a pleaser because they just go together so well. And then when the people pleaser tries to shift, it's very hard to deal with this dynamic and not step away from it. What can someone do if they have someone in their life that is like that, but it's a sibling or a mother or an uncle or somebody they can't just be like, I'm going away, goodbye, but someone you have to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah. Probably I'm the worst person to ask this question to, because I had exactly the same situation. And the person I'm talking about is my father. He was way too present in my life, not physically. He was like a presence. Like when I
Like living
decided
in your
to,
mind,
yes,
whispering in
yeah.
your ear every day.
Yes, absolutely. So every time I thought about whatever decision, I want to change this to this major, or I want to move to this city, or I would think first, what would my father say? That's how conditioned I was. How would he take it? How can I present this to him in a way that, it doesn't rock the boat? And he was really controlling. Like, at first, he came across as a very caring person that wanted the best for me. But then you would see that the more I allowed him into my world, the more he had.
Overgiving, but holding the leash really tight. The more he gives, the more he holds you by the neck.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted him to be part of my life, so I was creating space for him to, I would tell him my business. Really, I would have initially, I had a very good relationship because I would just be open with him. But I knew that there were certain things that I had to say to him in a certain way. But then I thought, he's a parent. Obviously, it's fine if he has things to say. It's fine. It's fine if sometimes he criticizes some of my choices. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a parent doing a parent's job. But then sooner, at some point, that became, I want you to live life according to my rules. That was very clear to me. I had no doubts whatsoever. And that became even more apparent when I got my now husband into my life.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, I know. Again, initially was warm, open, and it was very nice to be around, but then it was just he flipped. He flipped and nothing happened. He just decided from that day onwards he didn't want to be nice to be around anymore, and he started to become very controlling. He started to criticize all my life choices, to say that this person was not made for me, that choice was a wrong choice. I couldn't move back to my country because wherever he had everything came out suddenly. So I was shocked. It wasn't the first time that happened to me, but it was the first time after, in my adult life, after a few years, that he suddenly flipped like that out of nowhere. And I said just one boundary. I said, well, there's not really a boundary, but I set a rule, let's say, to not talk to me like that. That's what I said. That's all he needed. That's all he needed to say, okay, then don't talk to me at all.
Ow.
You know? So he reacted to a very, I would say, to an attempt to create a better conversation, right? It's not like I said, I don't want to hear your opinion at all. I said, can you please don't shout and scream and calling me names? That was the gist of it, right? Don't talk to me like that. And he immediately, he has a huge ego, by the way. He got very reactive to what I said. And it was very easy, actually. I didn't cut him off. It's like he cut himself off because he realized I wasn't controllable anymore, I guess.
Yeah, you see, that's the fear with people who are stopping to people please is losing someone you love in such an extreme way. And I'm sure from his perspective, something subconscious happened where he felt like doesn't have his little girl anymore, felt abandoned, felt maybe older and cannot control his own life, so wanting to control yours. Whatever the reason is, doesn't matter because the pain of emotionally losing someone like that it's grieving. It's hard.
But I have to say, this is an extreme case. I think that most times you can be assertive also with people who try to push the boundaries. But the main thing that you need is to understand how, in any given moment, so when they make a request, for example, when they try to push a boundary, how do you feel and what do you need? So that's why I say, grounding yourself is the first thing. And sometimes it's the first thing we teach to people pleasers, because what they often don't know how they feel about things, so they don't know what their needs are, because they just feel maybe anxiety or sense of being overwhelmed by certain situations, but they cannot go deeper than that. So one of the first things is realizing what's this person triggering within you, what kind of emotions are coming up, and what do you need from this person, this interaction, this conversation. And then we go to the communication side of things. But essentially, everything starts with you. So you need to understand what you feel, you need to understand your triggers, and you need to understand what you need from someone.
So how do you ground yourself and how do you start treating yourself better and putting better boundaries?
So I have actually on my website, I have a freebie about boundaries, because the first thing that we need to do is to understand what those are. There are different types of boundaries. There are emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, financial boundaries, whatever. There are time boundaries. There are many types. So you need to really be reflective around the type of deal breakers and boundaries and things that you will tolerate and accept in your life. And the fact that you can understand someone's behavior, like you were saying before, maybe your father was triggered somehow in the relationship with you, so he then behaved like that. We can understand almost everything. Specifically, people pleasers can understand a lot because they're very empathic. But then what you understand is something, and what you decide to tolerate is something else, and that's the first distinction that needs to be made. What are you tolerating that actually is not, it's not right? What behavior you're tolerating from other people, what behavior you're tolerating from yourself, where are you self-abandoning, basically? So if you don't really know yourself, if you don't stop, literally stop and think about, how do I feel right now? If you don't build that connection with yourself, if you don't increase your sense of, you need to become more sensitive to your emotions. If you don't stop and you ask yourself, how do I feel right now, then you will never, because if you are in survival mode, the people pleaser's response is going to be automatic. So immediately you say yes, immediately you will not be setting a boundary. You will be thinking straight away about the other person. So you need to start thinking about yourself first. But this is a job that you do every day. If you want to work on it every day, is how do I feel today, what do I need from myself today? And then when you find yourself in an interaction with someone, you're going to become more aware. That's what self-awareness is like, right? It's not just about knowing things. It's also about, how is this interaction affecting me? What's triggering within me? How can I show up for myself in this conversation? And also, how can I be kind and generous in this conversation? But still, kindness is also self-kindness. So that needs to be clear too.
When you have clients come to you, what are some common themes that you get, like common behaviors, and how do you quickly fix it?
Common behaviors. Uh, it's I don't think there's a quick fix per se, but the first thing I think that helps people is to understand where their people pleasing comes from. So the first session usually is quite revealing, because we go straight into childhood dynamics, and sometimes it's not the family of origin, sometimes it's the peer group, sometimes it's experiences of bullying or toxic relationships, even later in life. But many times, if you're dealing with a quote unquote people pleaser, it's mainly the family of origin who groomed the person to be a people pleaser. And so we make a list of the experiences that they had that they think really impacted on the way they see themselves. And then we make a list of all, let's say, all the ways in which these experiences impacted on their belief. For example, I had my parents were absent in my life because they worked a lot. So I spent lots of time alone, and I thought, that made me think that I wasn't really worth it. So then we start talking about, how is your mind protecting you from that feeling of worthlessness nowadays? What is your brain making you do to make you believe that you are worth it? I try to always be nice to people. I'm always like, I try not to be a negative presence in their life. I don't want to be a burden. So then you start seeing all the rules for living that come up of how they think they should be in their life to be worth it. So to be lovable. Okay. And then all these rules are actually linked to actual behaviors. So how, when you feel like you have to put other people's first, how does that show up in your behavior? If I go for dinner with my friend, I just go with whatever they want to eat, and I don't even express my preference. For example, it can be that silly, that small, right? Because that's just the tip of the iceberg. So you start with really small behaviors. When you start changing, you start with small behaviors. I had a client come to me once, and the first experiment we made was around deciding what she was going to have for dinner with her husband, that she was going to cook something without asking her husband if he wanted to eat that. It was a really small thing, and she never did it. And so we started with that, and she was like, okay, I did it, nothing happened. Sometimes it's just the fear, right? Sometimes the fear can be legitimate and real. Other times it's just that we never go against the pattern. So it can be a really small thing, and then you build the confidence to do another experiment, which can be, I don't know, I want to decide, I want to take 2 days off and go on a girls' trip with my girlfriends without thinking about what everyone else thinks. Okay, let's do that. Let's see what happens. And then you start getting slowly away from your schema, from your pattern, and you enter into a new framework of being, essentially.
Wow, this is so resonating in my life, especially, I don't know, I think the last year was a journey into that because I always want to be the best mom ever and to give as much as I can to my son. And I notice that I'm the last to eat at the table. I subconsciously, I'm just like, okay, I took care of everybody else. Just start eating. I'll come later, whenever. And I try to start changing that. It doesn't happen all the time, but make sure that I'm at the table with everyone. Or my 5-year-old, he loves mangoes. And when we lived in Miami, we had a huge mango tree with huge, juicy, delicious mangoes. And there was a season where like he would eat like 7 mangoes for breakfast. And here it's summer, but it's not. I'm not gonna get him like 7 mangoes for breakfast. I get a few mangoes and he eats them. But I always take the rest, a little bit of what's left on the pit. It's weird. Like it's not like I cannot afford my own mango, but I never eat the whole mango. And the other day I had a breakthrough. I was alone at home and I looked at the mango and I'm like, I'm gonna eat the whole mango by myself. I'm eating that mango. No, but this is my mango. And just sat and I ate the mango. And you know what? I started crying and laughing. It was very cathartic. The stupid mango. Like,
That's amazing, but that's a perfect example of how small an action can be. But then it's not just that you're eating the whole mango. That's not the thing. It's that the mango symbolizes something. And that for you was a cathartic moment with that triggered other things. So it doesn't matter how small, really. It's just getting away from a specific schema, pattern, script that you have been reenacting consciously or subconsciously for a while. And then you eat the mango and you're like, whoa, I like that. Like, that's perfect. Yeah.
yeah, but there is another pattern, schema, you call it, that I also notice I have going on, which is since childhood. There is a childhood memory, and I want to get into that, right? But there's a childhood memory where I had to save someone, and since then I am saving my family. I'm just a savior, a savior. Even when I was in acting class in New York, there was this super cool Russian lady, and I really liked her, but the American kids were really bullying her. Ended up bullying me too. Never mind, because I stood for her. Because I'm always like, I'm gonna be the savior. I protect the weak. I'm a superhero. I'm strong, and I'm gonna be there for the world. I'm gonna have a podcast. And I'm gonna teach people. I'm gonna da. But but I noticed that, especially now we came back to Israel, like, wow, I am here for my family and maybe in a not so helpful way because I'm over helpful sometimes and it comes on my expense, on my time, my health, my well-being. And I'm starting to put boundaries and structures, but it's not very easy. And when you start putting boundaries, to people who were almost like getting a sense of entitlement because you trained them for years on who you are in their lives. They don't like it. They don't like it. They don't love it. They don't like it.
No, no, but sometimes they need also time to adjust to a new version of you, so you can give them the benefit of the doubt and see if they can then understand what's changing and why it's changing. Because they say that the best thing you can do for a child, for example, is to show them self-love and what self-love is. Because if you put yourself at the center of yourself and then obviously you take care of your own child, then they understand that's how self-love is made, basically. So what you are doing is the calling that you have to break certain pattern is certainly the right path for you. You just need to find out how does that translate into action, and you need to work out in practical ways what does that mean to me. So when I am being extra helpful, when I step into the savior archetype, what part of me I'm actually leaving behind if I'm pouring so much energy into this relationship, into this situation, what am I avoiding or what am I not pouring energy into? It's a typical, oh, if I'm saying yes to you, then what am I saying no to?
Wow. Yeah, we always benefit from our victimhood, from our whatever we do, there is always a benefit to it.
Yeah. And that's not often, it's not obvious, right? It's a secondary gain because the savior archetype, very much like the victim archetype, not the archetype. Yeah, it can be an archetype, but let's say the mask, right? Because we step into a specific role. And then when we feel like we became that role, we become that role, then other people relate to us via that role. And wherever we gain in terms of relationships, like opportunities or other things, we attach it to that role. And so we feel like at some point, if I'm not that, who am I? If I'm not that, what am I gonna, how other people are gonna love me? Are they gonna like all of that? So that's why it's essential to step out, because then you find out, even if you step out, people still love you, people still care for you, you can still hold your family together, everything is fine. You're just not self-sacrificing yourself.
Yeah. I'm a pretty strong mom. How can I not make my child be a people pleaser? Because he loves me. I'm his mom. And I mean, I'm teaching him stuff like actually, when a stranger come, or even a neighbor, somebody who's like, or anyone, even his grandma, they come and they want a hug or kiss or a high five. I actually taught him to not give them that hug, kiss, or high five if he doesn't feel like it. And when he doesn't give them the high five, like there was we tried like a ninja class the other day, and and then I asked, the instructor was like high five, and he just looked at him like, like saying no. I said, oh, okay. People are really surprised, and they look at me expecting me to say, no, little guy, give him a high five. I'm like, no, this is your body, it's your boundaries. If you don't feel aligned with your energy to touch someone, then even not a high five, no way, Jose.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's a great way to start introducing the idea that you are more important, because that's essentially what you're doing when you're teaching that. You first check in with yourself and then you do wherever is aligned. And again, it can start from a small thing, primarily small thing, which is the high five. Because how many times, and that's to go back to the point you were saying before, that's even more true with women, with little girls. How many times, little girls are told to be nice and polite.
You're so pretty, why don't you smile? Like, I've never heard it's been said to a guy, oh, you're so handsome, why aren't you smiling?
No, of course, because that would be creepy. Guess what? It's creepy also for little girls. That's yeah, it's really, so what you're doing is great. But also to go back to what we were saying before, if you sometimes, if you prioritize yourself, your children will see that and they will not take it in the wrong way. They will learn that this is what self-love is. You have to teach them love and self-love too, right? At the end of the day. So I don't have children, so I cannot completely understand everything that involves having a child. But there is a book from a very famous psychologist from a long time ago called Eric Fromm, and the book is called The Art of Loving. And he talks about this concept in his book. He says that the mother is not just doesn't just give the milk, but gives the milk and the honey, to say that it's not just obviously there for survival, but also to teach you love and self-love. And if you want to go deeper into the concept of those concepts, I think it's a great book. It's a small one, but really powerful. But yeah, if you put yourself first at times, I think that will be good for your kids because you're modeling, right, to them.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a great point. And also when you're just sacrificing all time and playing martyr, then you become tired and angry and not the best mom ever. So,
But my husband was also a people pleaser, and when I asked them, where do you think you took this from? And he was like, I don't know if I was taught directly to become a people pleaser, but I can tell you that my mom is the same. So his mom is basically someone who thinks about other people's opinions all the time. And she talks a lot about other people's opinions. So he got the message at some point in childhood. This is important. I should be thinking about what other people think of me. So I should adjust myself to other people's expectations, needs, and preferences, because that's what you do. That's what my mom cares about. That's what I need to care about. So somehow then he became that person. And later on in adulthood, they realized, I am so similar to my mom with that.
I get that. How did you get more confident? How did you find self-love for yourself?
I think confidence is not, you know, when you start talking, when you start learning about self-love and confidence, and these are all like very nice concepts, and there are lots of theories, a lot of people that tell you this is the way to love yourself, this is the way to be confident, and essentially you, when you're in the learning process, you read a lot, you hear lots of podcasts, you go to therapy. I go to therapy, like, for example, that's a way in which I learned to take care of myself and to love myself. So you are in that process of learning, and then at some point you feel like, okay, so I know enough, what do I do? And many people stop there, like they go into information overload and they don't know exactly what to do or where to go. But essentially starts when you make the changes. That's how you start changing really the way you feel. It's not when you know, it's not when you change your even. It's when you change your behavior and your life, you start aligning your life with the person that you want to be. And it's not going to be overnight, because nothing is overnight. But even just the fact that you managed to change one thing, that it was there on your to-do list that you wanted to do, that gives you confidence. Because confidence is not like, oh, I'm the most amazing person. That's just having a big ego, and I'm going to leave it aside. We don't like that. But what we like is the idea that we can trust our ability to take care of ourselves and to change, and we trust our ability to our skills. Really, I trust myself in a sense that if I go through my life, if I go through something difficult and challenging, I know that I can get through it. So that, when I say confidence, not looking or doing or appearing, I don't care about this stuff. That stuff will come when you start trusting yourself. But if you don't put yourself in a position in which you can develop and you can grow, the so-called outside the comfort zone type of thing, how can you change, right? You just stay in your comfort zone and do things you always do. There's no change, there's no growth in the comfort zone. So you get out of the comfort zone and you start doing things differently. Worries, fears, negative thoughts will show up, and you just remember why you're doing what you're doing. And you shift your attention away from all these inner chatter, and you become extra focused on your purpose, let's say.
Yeah, it's so easy to be in the mind. We are living in a time where a lot is online. A lot is, you look at social media and videos and shorts, and a lot, we there are so many concepts. Everything is from the neck up, and we sometimes, when we consume a lot of information, we think we're doing something, but not. You actually have to take action, because if you're not taking the action, you will never learn the lesson. You don't know things until you actually did them. So get out of your comfort zone and eat that whole mango, or cook that dinner without asking, or wear the thing you want to wear without the little things. You take action. We live in a world of action. We are spiritual being having a human experience, but we have to have the human experience to connect to our spirit and heal and move forward and become better and greater. It's like when, like in my life, I took tons of self-development workshops where I had to like walk on fire, burn, like break an arrow in my neck, break a board. I walked on glass. I jumped from a telephone pole. But and but and but even those actions that were really symbolical gave me way more than, I think, a year of thinking about what it's gonna feel like if I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, that's really true. That's right. And you have no idea how many times people come to a session, and that's the first session, and they're like, I know everything. I know all my problems. I know where they come from. And I know how to change it. I just haven't changed it yet. Okay, so what's up? with that, but so many times we think that thinking is equal doing, or just because we ruminate or overthink about something, we're actually changing it or doing something about it. But the fact that we understand something, it doesn't mean that we are changing it just because we were thinking about it. So there's a time, and often we don't feel ready for this, but we don't need to feel ready all the time, in which action is certainly the key, 100%.
Yeah. Or sometimes we think we understand something, we don't have a knowing of it because we never experience it. You have to experience. Like you're never going to be a great speaker if you're not going to fail a few times on stage or actually step on stage. You can think about it all day long, but we live in a world of action. We got to take action, and that will move us forward, even if it's tiny action every day, because you build up on that.
You know that doing podcasts, being a guest on podcasts was one of my biggest fears. I had a huge fear of public speaking. Public speak Obviously this is not public speaking because it's just me and you, but it is public speaking because people are going to hear us talking. So this was terrified. I was terrified. I was paralyzed. I was the type of person that when a teacher would ask a question in class, I wouldn't, like, even if I knew the answer, I wouldn't raise my hand to say the answer. So I was, quote unquote, that bad, and this huge anxiety over speaking in general. And so when I decided, okay, I want to have my own business, I want to do my own thing, I felt called to do something like podcasts, but I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel I could do it. I was completely, like, the first podcast I recorded, I had anxiety for 3 days prior, something like that. I know. And then at some point, just, I did it once, I did it twice, I did it 3 times. And by the fourth time, it disappeared.
Yeah. Congratulations. Well done. Yay. Hooray. I love it. But actually, I can relate. I did not want to, 10 years ago. 10 years ago when I was young, when I was younger, 10 years ago. And I started this podcast. I didn't start it because I wanted to. There was some person in my life that believes in me more than I believed in myself. It was my husband. And I told him, who's gonna listen to me with my English, with my accent, with I'm afraid to even, like you said, not in class. In the classroom, I would be a good girl and raise my hand and answer. But if I'll go to a conference, I would be afraid to go to the mic and ask questions. So that's what I started doing. I would go to a conference and I would go to the mic and my knees would shake and my voice would shake and I would be in the microphone trying to ask this question.
I can relate so much to that, like university presentations, team meetings, everything for me. It was like if there was a group of more than 3 people, to me, it was public.
Yeah.
It's crowd.
Well,
Like, no,
high five to you if you want
thank you. You too. Yeah.
it. Very cool. Before we say goodbye for today, what are your 3 top tips to living a stellar life?
Oh, wow. So I would say there are 2 tips in ones, probably. So first of all, don't listen to your mind too much because your mind is not always logical. Uh, Most of your thoughts are come from your experience, so they're already conditioned. Second tip is listen to your intuition more. And emotions are not actually that illogical. So these 2 things go together. Listen less to your mind. So think less, essentially, and then feel more. Because sometimes emotions, intuitions tell you more than your thoughts. Your mind can be conditioned, your emotions cannot.
Mm. And where can people find you and find that offer you had about boundaries?
So it's on my website, which is lucole, written cole.com. And it's on the first page on my website and all the other pages, really, also. But you can just subscribe to the newsletter and you're going to get this freebie and many other freebies. But essentially, the whole newsletter is about setting boundaries, communications, becoming like more confident and stepping away from this people pleaser script. And I also have a blog where I weekly write about any topic that is people pleasing or people pleasing adjacent, let's say. And yeah, I also have social media. My handle is Ludovica underscore Colella underscore coaching. And you find me there as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ludovica. It was a pleasure and an honor to meet you, and it was really fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and best of luck for you for the future.
Thank you, and thank you, listeners. Remember, do not listen to your mind, listen to your intuition, and feel more. Connect to your heart, and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.